laundry. Don't have really enough to run a load. Okay, so what I'm going to talk to you about is something that our producer Bob Frizzell talked about in a video, probably like 2 or 3 months ago. So it's way down the list of the videos. So, as your host, Harry Weaver, that's me, I'm going to narrate something for you. In other words, I'm just going to regurgitate some of the things that Harry Weaver said earlier. Um, Now, what are we going to talk about? Okay, there's a couple of things that I'm going to talk about. First thing is healing family lineages. And secondly, we're going to talk about your personal history. That's you. Your history. We're not talking about the history of the world or the history of the United States. Your personal history. This is a very important thing, okay? Now, I could go off on a million different tangents on this. Don Juan Matus, the shaman of teacher of Carlos Castaneda, said basically you have to um, recollect everything in your own personal history in order to um, get lost energies. He said basically in your interactions with others, pieces of your own personal energy get stuck in the past. And you have to do this recollection of the past. And he gave Carlos this weird technique. He said you have to go move your head back and forth and breathe. And well, I don't do that. I don't do a lot of the things that the different teachers say. I pick and choose, and I've read far too many books to do follow any one path. So I don't follow any one path. I'm a dilettante. In other words, I take little bits of this, that, and the next thing. And a lot of these teachers will say, never be a dilettante. Always follow my path and only my path. And I always go, I give them the finger or something. It's like, thank you for telling me this, but all right, so let's see. So, healing family lineages, what does that mean? Well, besides your own personal life, where you might have had, childhood things, some people call them traumas, but, upsets. Then when you're a very little child, just about everything upsets you or it makes you laugh, but you skin your knee, it's an upset, and you got to go. If you're really small, you go running to your mom, and she gives you a hug, and she kisses it better and put a band-aid on it, and somehow that makes it feel better. But all kinds of different things. So what the shaman Don Juan Matus was saying was that these things are all places where your personal energy can get trapped. And I'm thinking of a great big, Awake the Giant Within, Tony Robbins. He had a huge book. I bought it. It's the size of a brick. I think I got through like the first two chapters and then I put it back on the shelf. It's way too long. And that was back in days when I would read long books. It was just way too long. And, so, what did I get from Tony Robbins? It was basically this idea that, you have personal power. And I never really understood what he meant by personal power. But if you take his idea that you do have personal power and you put it together with what Don Juan Matus says, that you lose your personal power through historical encounters with other people and other situations. If you want to get your personal power back, you have to basically spend a lot of time by yourself, away from the television. And music sometimes is good, but away from other people, because other people will distract the hell out of you and they'll get you talking about stupid things like, everything is stupid when you got other people, because it takes you away from reviewing your life. Now, if you're only like 10 years old, it doesn't apply to you because you don't have enough of your own personal history to really worry about it. But if you're an older person, let's say you're 21 or older, you've got enough personal history that you can review these things. Let's see. So what kind of things would trap your personal history? Well, just about anything. So, Don Juan said you have to remember every single thing that ever happened to you in your life. How are you going to do that? Well, you could say, I'm setting the intention to remember everything in my life. Are you going to be able to do it? No, no. Unless you've got, some people have got those kind of memories. It's like it's just the most amazing memory, and they do remember every single thing. Like they're like the savants that just, you could say like July the 31st, 1997, in the morning, what you have for breakfast, and they'll tell you. But, if you're like that, then that's just amazing, and you probably don't need this lecture. But if you're like me, you're more dyslexic when it comes to remembering things in your memory. Everything is all buried away somewhere, and the filing system that your mind is used is so cumbersome that you can't recall things that you want. And, the older you get, sometimes, with old people, sometimes their memories are really good of things that happened to them when they were young, but they can't remember, if they're in a nursing home, they can't remember which room was their room. So, memory's a funny thing. Let's see. So you're just going to go back and retrieve your stuck memories. In another video, I said sometimes what you do is, if you're old enough that you got old photo albums with old paper based photographs, you can go and look at your photo albums and just see if anything comes up there. Old people and old memories, and people that have passed on. Sometimes you will, it makes you want to cry a little bit, and if you're crying, that's a sign that there was a stuck energy there, and you can get that back. If you're modern age and you've got all your pictures on phones, it's the pictures that were on paper are way better for this purpose, because they're physical things and they're there and you can page through them. But we take so many pictures on the phone, and then you get a new phone, you throw your old phone away or you sell it, and all your pictures are gone. Very few people upload them to the cloud, and even if you do, you're like me, I can't remember the password and what account they went into, and so they're basically lost. So anyway, so you have to spend time alone and meditate and see what comes up. So that's basically healing family lineages personally. And then you have to heal your family lineages on your mother and father's sides. I mean, it could go on and on and on. You might think, well, maybe in a past life I was, had different mothers and fathers and lineages. Yes, but let that go. I mean, there's only so much you can do. But, you can do your family lineages, and maybe you would do like, if you had like your mother's sister, and then her husband is not really your lineage, right? Because he's not your blood relative, but, he would still be your uncle. So I would say those kind of lineages are still important, but, you have to try and figure out how far you want to go down this list of people that are, related to you. And if you were in a small family and, you don't have too many relatives, then maybe it's some of your close friends, like my mom had friends that we called, auntie, even though they weren't, related by family, but, it was like my mom's best friend, so she'd be my auntie. So those kind of people, it might be part of your lineage. And how do you heal those ones? Well, I mean, things come up for me. It's like, out of the blue, somebody will come who is somehow related to somebody that maybe my parents knew way back when they were young. So, and these people will come into your life, and if that happens, I mean, if it's a name that maybe you heard your one of your parents talk about when you were a kid, and then that person's name comes up, and it's like, are you related to so and so? And then, oh, lo and behold, out of the blue, and that just happened to me recently. And it happened to, and then sometimes you'll meet somebody on the internet who's got a name that's one of these names, and they're not even in your local area, but they're become sort of your Facebook or your Instagram or whatever pen pal. And if the name is the same as one of these names that you heard when you were young, then that's an interesting thing. And sometimes I think that these can be signs um, of some of your, your passed on relatives. Sometimes I hear names, and it sounds like one of my great aunts, and it's like, okay, so my great aunt is, uh, you know, been brought up to mind for me to consider. And a lot of times I don't know a lot about them, so if your parents are still living, you can ask them and see what comes up. Um, but I mean, it's sort of an automatic process. If there's things that need to be healed from these family lineages, then they'll come up, and you have to be intuitive, and it's just part of the whole. I mean, it's not your sole focus. Um, I'm wearing this hat, and it says Brazil. Okay, so Brazil was a very strange movie made quite a long time ago, but it's basically about um, Byzantine. Byzantine was like um, the old name of Istanbul, Turkey, which previously to that was Constantinople, and previous name to that was Byzantium, or a name like that. It basically was one of the capital cities of ancient Rome, the Roman Empire. It was the eastern capital of the Roman Empire, and it just was just full of government officials and offices. And if you wanted to get anything done, it was like super complicated because there were so many different officials that were, you had to get, maybe you have to go and get stamps done of your documents and things. So you have to go all over this place to try and find these different things, and try and figure it out. So it's very complicated, and that's what this movie Brazil was all about. It was basically, for a poor little human to figure out how complex these government organizations are and society are. Even to this day, I'm thoroughly convinced that we have got 99.99% too many laws and regulations. And everybody will say, well, not everybody, but people, when I say that, they'll say, well, we need them because, we had one person out of 10 million that did this, and then we had to make a regulation because of it. It's no. You don't have to, because one person, usually it's a bad apple. One bad apple does something, and then you have to go and create a whole new bunch of laws for the other millions and millions of people. And this goes on year after year and year after year, and it gets so unbelievable. Nobody knows what all the laws and regulations are in the book. And it makes people just disgusted with the whole thing. And nobody wants all these rules, so they could be scrapped, and everything could be scrapped and started again with. Okay, so we talked about, well, how do you heal these things? I think, a lot of these things are karmic. Okay, so um, if somebody's died and they've got karma, they might have to come back and reincarnate to experience their karma. But if you're one of their descendants somehow, somehow related to them, you might be able to help them by dealing with their karma while you're here. So, which is a good thing, because if you can lighten the load of other people, and so that maybe they don't have to come back into a really shitty karmic situation, you lighten the load, and maybe some other people will do it for you too. So the more people that are willing to deal with karmic items from their family lineages, like just imagine if you were born into the Illuminati, like some of the horrible stories that you hear, or like maybe you were born into a bloodline of aristocrats that, if you look back on them, you're not too pleased with them. But if you're going to deal with the karma of your ancestors, you might think, why would I have even chosen to be born into this family? And it might have been because you were of a higher vibration, and basically you they needed somebody who was fresh and who had a higher vibe to deal with some of these things, and who was more conscious, because if the same souls keep coming back in and they don't have the consciousness to deal with these things, they're just going to get trapped, and it's just going to snowball and get worse and worse. So if you're born into one of these families, it may well be because, and you don't know why, that could be why, is because you might be like one of these star seed kind of people with a very high vibration, a lot of love, and you'll just have the consciousness in order to be able to deal with these things that happen in your family. And you might be born into a family and you might just go, I hate my family, I can't stand them because they're very selfish and greedy, and it's nothing like me. So, you're just by coming in there and reversing these family patterns. Maybe there was a lot of cycles of abuse. Maybe the children were abused, screamed at a lot, or, sent away to boarding school, and there was very little, that the parents were very cold and, not available. So, so some of these people are, you know, maybe they feel like, well, why am I getting blamed? I got born into an aristocratic family, and people hate my family because they own everything, and my alter ego Tyler Mackey is always talking about how the cabals own everything, and the Illuminati and the aristocracy and the 1% own everything. But if you're one of those kind of people that's born into these families and you're feeling like, well, Tyler, don't blame me. I mean, I didn't create this mess. Well, Tyler's not blaming you. I mean, it might sound like it, but it's because his person is that he's fed up. He's felt like he's been abused by society because he's a poor person and he has a very hard time living in this world. So if you are born into a family lineage that you just can't figure it out why, it's because you're conscious. And I'm not going to be able to give you, directives on what to do, but I'll give you that explanation that you're there for a reason. It's because you're more conscious, you're more loving, and you're just more able to deal with these things. And if you can lighten these karmic loads for your family, you're doing a great service to the whole, not only to your family lineages, but to the whole planet and the whole of humanity. So, you're in the right place. It's probably a very tough job. So, and so that's probably why you were selected, because it was felt that you had more inside of you that maybe you don't even realize. So, if you feel like you're in a tough situation, sometimes you want to scream, God, why'd you put me here? I'm telling you, the reason is because you have inner strengths that maybe you haven't tapped into, but it's known in the universe that you are somebody who's capable. So, that's basically a vote that you can do it, and you got this one. All right. Let's see what else. Okay, so Bob Frizzell was talking about people that you've met in your personal history. When you're going and reviewing your personal history, they're all important. So maybe the jobs that their parents had are important. Their names in particular are important. So if someone's name was a trade, for example, someone's name was Joe Plumber, well, that's important. Or if it's a very strange, unusual name, my cosmic character Ludmilla, she's from Belarus, and Ludmilla, her first three letters are Lud, Lud, which is a city in Stephen King's universe in the Dark Tower. So I would say somehow there's a connection between my Ludmilla from Belarus and Stephen King's world. So I always look to see if there's, try and break down their names, and see if there's any books that you ever read that have a similar name or part of that word in a book. And there's links there. Every book that you ever read is important. It was put there for you. You won't believe this, but it's true. All of this stuff that you've experienced, once you get to the point where you start watching my videos, these things that you have happened to you in the past become very important. way back then, it just seemed like random people, random events. But there are no accidents in the universe. Nobody believes that until they start really examining their world and their experiences. And you wonder, well, why were these people in my life when I was in high school, and then they've disappeared? They've moved to, I don't even know where they are, but one time they might have been either somebody that was like a really close friend, or maybe they were like my pet enemy or something. But, and that you have to remember their names and their faces, and what, as much as you can, what they were all about and where it all fits in. But these things are really important, and it won't always come to you all at once. It won't. There's too many things, but just pay attention to their names, especially their names, whatever their funny name is, and if they had a nickname. What were they known for? Were they like the class clown? Did they have certain things that they always said? It was like their pet saying that they always said. Um, all these kind of things about these people when they come up. How are you going to use it? I can't say, because even for me, I don't know, but I know they're important. And Mr. Frizzell, our producer, has said it's important, so I'm going to repeat what he said. It'll just be things that you're going to go and re-jot down inside your mind that, oh yeah, I remember so and so. It was Doug Jokey Blokey. And what we remember about him, well, he would come to class and it smelled like he hadn't had a bath in a week, and everyone knew it and didn't want to sit near him. So whatever you remember about these things, everyone's got their own personal history, but all of these little items about all these different characters in your life, and what you experienced with them, you never know when it's going to become important for figuring out. What are you figuring out? Well, you're figuring out your life. It's like you've been an actor in your life for so long, the main character in your own personal life, and who wrote the script, and like, what's the story all about? I mean, if you come to a dead end and you feel like, geez, I've been here for so many years, and it's like, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know see what the point of it all. What was the point of taking all these classes and subjects? Well, what I want you to do is remember, like, if you were in English class in high school, what books did you read in English class in high school? What books did you read when you were a child? Maybe your parents or your siblings read you books, or maybe you never read books, but you were like a movie buff and you liked to watch movies all the time, or comic books, or maybe you didn't like any of that stuff. Maybe you were totally into sports and you remember all kinds of things about the players and their teams and their statistics, and maybe that's what you're into. Whatever it is, it's important, and you'll be able to use this at some point in time. But just know, I'm just putting this in your head so that something twigs and you're wondering, why did I remember this? And then you can go through and you think, well, I'm not really sure, but he said it's all important. And with time, it will become clear. I am sure it does. And some of these things are, maybe there were people in your parents' or your aunt's life, and maybe if they're passed on, or they're old living in an old age home, they can't remember anything. But maybe there was some incident that happened with the families way back before you were born, which is a karmic incident, and you can heal it by just becoming aware of it. And it's like, well, maybe some unhappy incident happened, or somebody was disappointed with certain thing, that the outcome of whatever was going on. Like, maybe there was, like, long before you were born, maybe one of your relatives caught the eye of some other family in town, and they thought that their kid should marry your relative, and it didn't happen, so somebody's nose got out of joint. That's karmic, believe it or not. Something as small as we think you should go and see if you can date so and so and see if you can get married to them. That's a karmic thing, something as small as that. Or maybe somebody in your family was being pushed to go and into some career and they didn't do it. So maybe they were supposed to be a dentist for whatever reason. Maybe there was a long line of dentists in the family and somebody was the black sheep and said, I'm not going to be a dentist. And they went off to California and they became like a deep sea fisherman or something. And the whole family was disappointed that nobody carried it on. Or maybe somebody in your family was the last of the line, last male with that last name. And nobody, maybe that person didn't have any children to pass on the family name. And then it could be people that are already dead, but they're still aware of you and they're really annoyed. It's like, this is the family name. And, you were supposed to have children and pass on the family name because they want to get reborn into the family, in the family lineage. That's what a lot of times what they want to do is they want to, maybe they're like your great 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 grandfather, and at some point he wants to get reincarnated into the same family lineage, and he can't because you have decided not to have children. So his nose is really out of joint. He's really really annoyed at you. So is that karmic? I don't call that karmic, but I call that a family problem because you've got somebody who's angry at you and you're not even aware of it. They're so far distanced from you. But from their perspective, they're watching what's going on Earth and you're their person and you're not doing what they've told you to do. And how are they telling it to do? Well, they're over in whatever realm they're in and they're watching and they're like talking out loud. You're saying, yo, stupid piece of whatever. Why aren't you doing this? It's like, now sometimes they'll break through. Sometimes they'll break through and you'll think that you've gone crazy because it's like you might hear something. It's like, who said that? And you look around and there's nothing there, but you just heard a really angry voice that said, told you something. And you're going, who the heck was that? And, it's not like a voice from spirit. If it's the God spirit, it's benevolent and it's quiet and it comes in the silence. And a lot of times it doesn't even speak. It's just the presence of it. But if you're getting an angry voice, it's not God. Okay. If it's an angry voice, it's not God. It could be, somebody from your family lineage or, somebody who's dead, ghost or whatever. But if it's angry, it's not God. And you don't have to listen to it. And you can tell them to, take off and leave me alone. Because you are not obligated to do what ghosts, dead people want you to do because you're like some descendant of them. Some people say, well, your ancestors are like your spiritual team. No. Unless you're in an incredibly conscious family. And, I wouldn't go with that. I would say, people that lived in the past, they lived in very hard times and they're not nearly as conscious as people today. So if you're taking hints that this is what you should do from, if you're going to a psychic and asking, what does my great grandmother think I should do or whatever, this is stupid because they don't live in this time period. They don't know things. We've got way more information on YouTube than they ever had in all of their stupid books that they were working with way back in the day. I mean, there's people like Dion Fortune who wrote all these books about psychic self-defense and all this. If you're into all these old books like Dion Fortune, psychic self-defense, it's a waste of time and it's actually going to screw you up. It's a trap. Dion Fortune is a jackass because he's telling you to do all these things to self-defense yourself. You don't need armor. And if he's telling you you need armor, you need to put white bubbles of light around you, you need to call on angels to protect you. If you're depending on that, it ain't going to work. It's going to bite you in the ass because something really nasty is going to come and you're going to call on these things and they're not going to help. And then you're going to be like, well, that throws my whole spiritual framework into shambles because I was taught, at church, for example, that, you got to call on these things, or when I was in a new age and the ascended masters are going to help me. No, they won't. How do I know? Because I've been through all this stuff and none of them work. You don't call on anybody at all. You work with yourself because it's all about you here while you're here. And if you're calling on outside people to help you, that's not what it is about. It's not what it's about. If that's what was it about, what's the point of coming to Earth? Coming to Earth, and then you've got all these other ones that are going to go and it's like you're the quarterback, and all these other ones are your linemen, and they're gonna protect you from the opposing team. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And if people think that there's spells you can cast and things you can say and amulets you can wear and etc. to protect you, no, no, it's bullshit and bafflegab, and it's a waste of time. So don't do that. Don't do that. The things that you're gonna use your intuition, and you're going to use your heart. How much of the mind are you going to use? 25% mind, because most people use about 99% mind, and it makes you very egoic and intellectual, and then you get a book and you start following the book, and it's like everything by rote. And that's not what it's about. It's about getting within your heart and connecting with your own intuition. So if you're somebody who's very much like, what is it, right brain, left brain, I can never remember. But if you're very much about having your list of rules that you have to run by, you got to throw all your rules away. Throw your rules away. You got to be more. It's the feminine aspect, divine feminine, and it's about being soft. So it's like when you go to somewhere and you're looking at people, it's not like hard, squinty eyes looking at people like, what are you looking at? That is not the energy you want to be putting off. It's soft eyes. It's very soft eyes. You don't have to go up there and kiss them or anything, but it's soft eyes. In other words, it's, your most dear person to you. Maybe it's your dog, when your dog comes home and licks your face when you get home. It's that kind of feeling that you have for your dog that you want to project to people. And it's not like staring at them with doggy eyes either, but it's soft eyes. It's not hard, squinty eyes where your people are going to go, that guy, there's something wrong with him. He doesn't like me right off the bat. So it's the energy you're putting out. So, that's basically what you ought to be concerned about with your family lineages, is if there's stuff that they left undone, and family heirlooms, for example. Sometimes when people kick the bucket, there's enormous fights among the children about who gets what, and these cherished items. It's like, you're better off if somebody's like that, let them have everything and walk away. Because these kind of things, they're just material things, and they're not important. If somebody says, well, this, that, and the next, I've seen it. And everybody knows these stories. And like, some people think, well, you got this, this, and this, and I only got this. And, my thing was worth $10, and you got something that was worth $20,000 on, what's that TV show where they do, people can go and bring all their items, and they get evaluated by the museum guys, and they find out these antiques are worth a fortune. It's like, you got to let it go. You got to let it go. And if there's somebody in your family that needs all this stuff, just give it to them. Just give it to them and walk away. You can go down to the Value Village and buy replacement junk, because most of the stuff that they're really attached to, that's where it came from. It came from like Kresge way back in the day, or Woolworth. It was a 5 and dime store, but it was just something that they saw when they were a child, and it was a regular thing. So it's their inner child that's grabbing on to that. The adult would go, "What junk?" I mean, so if there's something that you want, just go. If it's really important to you, let them have it, and go buy a substitute at Value Village, and or maybe your significant other will say, "I'm glad that went. It was really junking up the house," and go buy something decent or whatever. So don't hold on to these things. And, everyone's got stories about the black sheep in the family who screwed everybody else out of, in the will. And, It's very difficult because you'll never forget this thing, and you try and say, well, forgive it 10,000. You can't. It's always going to be there. So it's always going to be there, and maybe you still want to have like civil family dinners, so you don't want to bring it up. I mean, it's the elephant in the room, and sometimes it's very funny because this person who screwed everybody else will go on about their friend who got screwed in their family, and you can see it's like something that it's a real item for them to watch other families that got screwed out of this and out of that. So basically, what they did is it was like they didn't want to get screwed by everybody else, so they went out and screwed everybody. It was like it's something going around their head. It's like a program in their head where everyone's out to get me on this thing, so I got to get what I can, and then they'll kind of bury it, and they'll forget that they even did this to everybody else, and they'll come tell you a story that's very similar, but it'll be about somebody else, and they'll go, "Can you believe that?" And you'll be looking at them. Do you know who you are? I mean, you did this exact thing, and they'll have forgotten about it. It's like they've just drawn a blank, some kind of psychological shield over it. But it's very funny, and uh, you know, I'm not gonna say poke a hole in their bubble because quite likely you're gonna provoke them, and I mean, I've done it too. I've done it to people who were very mean to me, and then became sort of, well, like social friends or whatever. And then sometime many years later, after I'm not even around them anymore, it might still be like a Facebook friend or something. And I might say, well, something that's been bothering me for forever was, the time when you were really mean to me, and this is what happened. And, in the case of the one I'm thinking of, this person basically got really mad at me and said, "Well, this never happened, and you're making all this up." And then they blocked me, and that was the end of the relationship completely. What good did it do? Well, I got it off my chest. I brought it up. So, do I feel better about it? Well, it happened. It just happened. It just happened. It was just something that I felt like I had to bring up because I didn't understand it, and even to this day, I don't understand why this particular situation came up. Will it ever be resolved? I hope so. At some point in time, hopefully we'll figure out what it is. But for now, it's a dead end, and I have to just put it aside. But it's an example that I can give you of where, basically I called a spade, and saw what happened. And if somebody does that to you, it's happened to me where somebody has, we've been out for coffee, and we're just chatting, and then all of a sudden they got into this mood and they started saying all these things that I did that were mean to them, and I kind of felt small because they were, from their perspective, they were true. And it wasn't until quite a long time later, I mean, it went over and over and over it in my head many, many times, and because I couldn't really remember everything that was going on at the time. But when they presented it to me from their perspective, I felt really small, like I had been really mean spirited or, small minded or whatever. And then, it was a long time later after this had played back multiple times that I finally got more and more memory back about it and more context about it. And gradually, these things that were hidden, why, I don't know why, but gradually more and more of the context, more and more of the situation, the long-term situation that was going on came up. And then I started to understand why I did what I did. And, it wasn't the story that they told me. It was a very sweet little story they told me that made me feel really small. But that's just the one example where I came to the conclusion that no, this was maybe you're taking like this one little day, and you're forgetting the whole rest of the context. It was basically they said, I was so good to you, 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 and then you were mean to me. And, then the coffee that I was having with them became, well, they started giving me the cold shoulder, and to this day, they won't talk to me. But it took me a long time to get to the point where I could remember, well, why did this situation happen from my perspective? And it took a long time before I got more context in it. And then I started to be, because I felt like, I was horrible. Why would I do it? Because the way it was presented to me, it was like, yeah, I mean, I can't understand this. Why was I this way? And then when you get more and more context on it, it helped me to forgive myself for, you know, what this person was saying to me. And, I mean, I guess you can say, well, I forgive myself for being a jerk. I mean, everyone's a jerk. But, I mean, you have to keep going back over these things, because just saying, well, I forgive myself completely for whatever I did, that's only on the surface. I mean, you really have to understand why you said what you said in the situation, the whole huge context of what was going on. If you can't remember, then you're forgiving yourself, but it's not helping you let go of whatever this pain is. It's like, I want to forgive myself, but why did I do this? What was going on? What was going on? And until you get that big picture, you won't understand why it is that you did what it was. And then you can forgive this, and you might even turn around and say, actually, it was the other person that did something that was, it was like over the top, that I couldn't tolerate anymore. So it wasn't me. It was basically me setting a boundary and said, despite all the friendship that we've had, you've crossed the line. And now that's just one case. There's other cases where I remember when I was mean to other people. And a lot of times it was the kind of group scenario. Like I can remember like in like grade 5 when we were in class and we were mean to one girl. And this happened a number of times over the years when it was sort of the group thing and it's kind of like, either I go with sort of the in crowd and, we ostracize somebody else, or they're going to pick on me, because I've been picked on quite a bit. And it's like, oh God, not again. And then looking back as an adult, you think, well, I understand why the child did this. It was just trying to make its own life easier. Was it nice? No, it was horrible. But you can't expect a child of like 10 years old to have that capability to stand up and say this is wrong. Maybe there's some amazing kids that can do it at 10, but I wasn't that kind of a kid. I was mostly a kid that was like, you know, I didn't want to fight, but I did get into some fights, and I was quite amazed, and I didn't think I could even fight. And there was one person that was, well, actually, there was a number of people that were bullying me, boys and girls, and look back and I'm just amazed. Like there was the one guy, um, I punched him in the eye, and I didn't think I could even throw a punch. I never took boxing lessons, but I punched him in the eye, gave him a black eye, and he never bugged me again. And I was, and then there was other ones, the other people, so you never know what you can pull up out of yourself. Um, but then you go back and you think, geez, that for the other kids that I picked on because I had to go along with them, I feel really bad for those kids. And, I don't know those kids anymore. I don't know where they are, what they're doing, but I'm sure that, it goes on in their mind. Why was I picked on? And, that they remember all the kids that were mean to them, and I would have been one of them. So, and I'm sure that's the same for everybody. Nobody is, like perfect, and everyone's personal history is like that. So, you know, but if you can review these things, and if you can, it's not like going and giving yourself like a write off and saying, okay, well, you were going along with the crowd and that was good. No. So, if you're talking to young kids, and you might say, well, this is what happens when I was young, and we did bully people, and this is why we bullied people. So if you can educate the young people and say, this is what happened, and if you see these kind of things happening, it's like a replay of what happened to your parents or your grandparents. It's like this cycle of abuse, and we want to break the cycle of abuse because it's horrible, the way that these things go on. And sometimes the bullies are bullied by their parents at home, and then they learn from their parents. This is how the parents get their way, so they take that to school, and the dominant person. So this is why you have to look back at your personal history in so many different ways, not to really criticize yourself. I mean, when you do see these things, sometimes you're just mean, and you're just thinking, oh my God, I hope I'm not mean like that again. But in a lot of times, if you can get the bigger context of what was going on, you'll be able to at least figure out from the child's perspective when you were 10 why you did what you did. All right, hope that helps you.